everyone. In this module, Introduction to Business Math Module 3, we're going to be looking at some simple algebra, so solving algebraic expressions. The algebra in this course is not too complex, but sometimes you may need to rearrange a formula to solve for a specific variable. So when you're solving algebraic expressions, your goal is always to isolate the variable. So whatever it is you're trying to solve for, you want to get that by itself on one side of the equal sign. So if you already have a good understanding of algebra, then you might know some other techniques for isolating the variable. But this lesson is intended for those people who maybe don't understand algebra so well. And so hopefully this is a new trick or a new way of looking at things to help you along with rearranging these expressions. So the first two examples, most likely you could do this in your head without really needing to rearrange. You could probably just solve this by logic and common sense. But I'm going to use these examples to show you the technique of rearranging these expressions. So in our first example, we have 8 plus x equals 20. And so we want to get x all by itself on one side of the equal sign. And so what we need to do is we need to get rid of this 8. And right now the 8 is adding. And by get rid of it, we can't just magically make it disappear. We have to keep it, but move it to the other side of the equal sign. So I want to send it to the other side of the equal sign. And with this way of thinking about rearranging expressions, when you send something across the equal sign, as soon as it crosses that equal sign, it becomes the opposite operation. So right now we're adding. That means when we cross the equal sign, we're going to be subtracting our number 8. And so what we're left with is something that looks like x equals 20 minus 8. And now we just have simple subtraction. So x equals 12. And so you probably could have come up with that without having to rearrange. But this is an easy expression so that you can see how this technique works. The other easy example is here with 5x equals 20. And this is the same sort of thing. I have x. I want to get x all by itself on one side of the equal sign. So that means that I need to get rid of this 5. And the 5 needs to go to the other side of the equal sign. So right now, the 5 is multiplying. And so as it crosses the equal sign, it becomes the opposite operation. And so the opposite of multiplication is division. So we're going to do divide by 5. So we have something that looks like x equals 20 divided by 5. So x is equal to 4. So now that we know the idea behind moving, adding or subtracting, as well as multiplication, we're going to tackle a little bit trickier problem. So this one requires multiple steps. We're going to do 3x plus 5 equals 23. And so when we do this, the way that I like to think about it is that we are going to work our way in closer to x. So we're going to get rid of the things that are least attached to x first. And so when we look at this, that plus 5, that is sort of least attached to x. So we're going to move that to the other side. As it crosses the equal sign, it becomes the opposite operation. So this becomes minus 5. So we're left with something that looks like 3x equals 23 minus 5. And so I'm just going to rewrite this and finish up that subtraction. So we have 3x is equal to 18. And now we're going to deal with getting x all by itself. So we're working our way towards that. And so now we're left with this 3. We can take the 3, move it to the other side of the equal sign. It becomes the opposite of multiplication, which is division. So we have 18 divided by 3. So our x is now 18 divided by 3. So x is equal to 6. And you don't necessarily need to show so many steps. This is for illustration purposes. So you could most certainly be skipping steps here. You could go from the first line to 3x equals 18, not even show, your arrows. This is purely for illustration purposes. And so I do like the box of the answer at the end. It makes it much easier to find, but you don't necessarily need to show this much process. So what I've just shown you is probably about as difficult as the algebra gets in this course. There's not a whole lot of algebraic manipulations, just some rearranging of formulas. But I'm going to give you a couple of more difficult examples that we'll work through just to really polish your skills and make sure we have a solid understanding. So in this example, we have 4x minus 2 equals 6x plus 2. So when you have something like this, and you have an x on both sides of the equal sign, you want to first collect up your x's on the same side of the equal sign. So we are going to, and it doesn't matter which way you do this, I'm going to take this 6x and I'm going to move it over here. So I have 4x minus 2, and then the 6x was adding on the right side of the equal sign, so now I'm going to make it subtract. And that's going to be, we're going to be left with equals plus 2. And then I'm going to, and you can do this all in one step. I'm going to show it in separate steps. And then I have this minus 2 that's hanging out there, and it does not involve an x. So I want to get that out of there. I want x's on one side and not x's on the other side of the equal sign. So I'm going to take this minus 2 and send it over here. When it crosses the equal sign, it becomes the opposite, so it's no longer minus 2, it's plus 2. So what we're left with is 4x minus 6x equals 2 plus 2. And so now we can tidy this up a little bit. 4 x's take away 6 x's, so if you watch the last module with our integers, we have minus 2 x's, and 2 plus 2 is 4. And then we're going to deal with the minus 2x. So we have to think about, before we start moving things around, we have to think about what's happening. So right now, on the left side of the equal sign, I have x being multiplied by negative 2. So the negative sign goes with the 2, and it goes to the other side of the equal sign. So we are being multiplied by negative 2. That means we're going to divide by negative 2. Alternatively, you could write it like this. Sometimes that's actually my preference. Okay, so the negative 2, because we're multiplying by negative 2, the negative sign sticks with it. And so you're changing to the opposite operation. So instead of multiplying, we're going to divide. And so what we're left with is x equals 4 divided by negative 2. So you have 4 divided by 2, that's 2. Positive and negative makes negative. And so you have a final answer of x equals negative 2. Okay, so that's probably more difficult than what you'll experience in this course. So if you were able to follow along with that, you're in really good shape with your algebra skills. The last example that I'm going to do for you, it has one additional element. So on the left side of the equal sign, you'll see that we have 2 outside the brackets, and so 2 is being multiplied by 3x plus 5. So just to remind you what that means that we're multiplying each of the terms within the brackets by 2. And so sometimes I hear this called FOIL, which isn't completely correct. I've also heard it referred to as rainbow or fishing. But this is a distribution of that 2 out front. So we're going to start by cleaning this up. We're going to say 2 times 3x. That's going to give us 6 x's. So 2 groups of 3 x's gives us 6 x's in total. And 2 times 5 gives us plus 10. And then the right side of the equal sign we leave unchanged. And now this looks just like the previous example. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to rearrange. I'm going to do it all in one step this time. And it actually doesn't matter which side you collect your x's on. So I'll do it the opposite way this time. So my 6 x's are going to go over here. and become minus 6x because they were adding. And then my plus 2, it's going to come over here and become minus 2. And so then what I'm left with is 10 minus 2 over here equals, and then on the right side, I have 8x minus 6x. And then if I want to go ahead and clean this up, I have 10 minus 2, so that's 8. 8x's, take away 6x's, leaves me with 2x. And then one final step to get x by itself, I have this 2, and I'm going to kick over to the other side. We were multiplying 2 times x, so it's going to become divide by 2. And so what we're left with is 8 divided by 2 equal to x. And this is where my math etiquette comes in. I like my variables on the left side, but you definitely don't have to do that. So x is going to be equal to 4 this time. Okay, so there's a lot of arrows and pictures here that you don't necessarily need to show. Showing process is certainly a good thing to do, and putting a box around your final answer is very helpful for me, but you don't necessarily need to show circles and arrows. You don't even need to show quite as many steps, but showing some process is always recommended. So algebra skills we will use sporadically throughout this course.